Hi, everyone. We all having a great day? Woo. So this afternoon, we're going to spend the next 18 to 20 minutes, if my time is all right, discussing the responsibilities associated with PR and online visibility. We'll be looking at why PRs need to recalibrate towards more qualitative, contextual measures of success. We'll be covering the reasons why content quality needs to be a number one priority the moment you step out of this room. And I'm going to be sharing 5 unconventional-ish hacks that you can begin implementing today that's going to take your brand's PR profile from 0 to hero. But first, a spot of shameless narcissism. I'm Digitaloft's all-singing, all-dancing content lead. I've got about 8 years of experience working both in-house and agency side. I was diagnosed with autism aged 25, so if I seem awkward and uncomfortable at the party after today's talks, it's because I'm awkward and uncomfortable at parties. And I've got a crippling addiction to both jelly beans and crosswords. Now, seriously, it's borderline problematic at this point. But narcissism aside, why am I standing here talking about this? And why are you guys sat here listening to me? Well, I'll tell you. We all know the phrases, the higher you climb, the further you have to fall. And the higher the stakes, the more you have to lose. But these apply to PR as well. I mean, the better we are at our jobs, the more successful our link building strategies are, the more high profile coverage we secure, and basically the more visibility we earn, the greater the potential losses are for our clients. And there's many reasons why this is the case, but I think we can split these into 2 core categories, hard and soft. So by hard reasons, I mean those that have, thank you, nuts and bolts in kind of the how Google works, how it returns results on the SERPs. So I'm talking about things like core algorithm updates, ranking systems, and published guidance on how search works to deliver the best possible results for users. By soft reasons, I mean those kind of like the softer, squishier reasons that have a less direct but still really, really, really important role to play in determining a brand's overall online visibility and its off-site authority. Now, for the purposes of today's talk, we're going to be focusing mainly on these softer, squishier reasons because they have the biggest links to this notion of responsibility. So let's look at these in a little bit more detail. First up, we've got negativity biases. Now, humans, that's me, that's you, it's even you. We all have an intrinsic bias towards negativity. Now, I'm not saying that we're all kind of negative Nancys and Normans sitting here wallowing in puddles of our own pessimism. If you are, please speak to me after this talk. We just want to have a good time, which means we're all hardwired to pay undue attention to anything that's going to kill our vibe, cause us frustration, or put us in harm's way. But within the context of what we're talking about today, within the context of our responsibilities as PRs, this causes problems because there's a strong positive correlation between visibility and fallout. By this, I mean, if we screw things up in private, nobody has to know. The impacts are going to be minimal. But if we screw things up on a large stage, if we succeed in making headlines in national press, if we go viral with a particular campaign, we're increasing the number of people that are going to see what we've done and be left feeling less than impressed. And as PRs, we also need to think about our relationships with journalists and editors. Now, if the pitches we write, if the hooks and headlines we send are blander than a Jacob's cream cracker, sorry if anybody from Jacob's is in the room, or if our campaign data has more holes than a slice of Swiss cheese, then any outreach emails we send, they're going to be on an express train to the trash folder. So next up, we've got brand perception. And what's really important to realize is that brand perception and brand identity are not the same things. Now, brand perception is not something that the brand can define, dictate. It's only something that it can influence or inform. Perception exists in a reality that's created and controlled entirely by the audience. And as the audience, we build these perceptions based on interactions. So every time we kind of interact with a brand, the content that it creates, whether it's kind of passively, when we're scrolling through social media after work, whether we're kind of catching up on the day's news, the quality and the utility of this content, it begins to shape our perception of the author. Now, relative to what we're talking about today, again, this causes problems because if coverage about comments from a brand leave its reader feeling frustrated, confused, concerned, or if pitches that we send leave journalists with more problems than they solve, this is all going to have some pretty serious commercial consequences. And last but not least, we've got audience well-being. Now, quite a lot of us will be familiar with the concept of YMYL, your money and your life content, and how the need for factual accuracy and credibility kind of permeates through these at every single level. But as PRs, if we succeed in earning high-profile coverage, in increasing visibility and share of voice, then our responsibility to uphold all these things increases along with it. For example, who remembers that time during the pandemic when the then leader of the free world, Mr. Donald Trump, confidently proclaimed during a national address to Congress that the way to avoid catching COVID was to ingest bleach? Now, as if that wasn't a worrying enough assertion in itself, a subsequent study by the CDC found that 4% of people admitted to having drank or gargled with bleach or disinfectant after hearing that advice. Now, 4% doesn't seem like a lot, but if the numbers are to be believed, 4% of the US population equates to approximately 13,448,000 people. Yeah. Now, the impacts of this were so dramatic because of the visibility of its delivery. Now, yes, okay, it's a bit of a sensationalized example, but the lesson remains true. If we as PRs and SEOs, if we create content, whether it's a data-led creative campaign, a reactive piece, or a response to a request for an expert comment, if this content has incorrect, misleading, unqualified information, and this content secures coverage in national press, high-profile publications, or goes viral online, then the implications for audience well-being are going to be catastrophic. So, now we know why content quality is so important. How do we do it? I'm going to share 5 top hacks that you can start implementing from today that's going to take your content to the next level. So, number 1 is your audience doesn't care. Sorry to be the breaker of bad news, but it's probably true. Sure, they might be loving absolutely everything you're saying. They might be hanging on your every word. But chances are they're distracted by any number of other things. They might be thinking about what they're having for dinner. They might be thinking about an argument they had with a partner the night before, or they might be thinking about that really cute doggo they saw on the way to work. We live in a world where attention spans are shorter, people are busier, and distractions are absolutely everywhere. People don't have the time or the patience to think any more than is absolutely necessary. If they have to search for answers harder than they should, they're just going to switch off, they're going to disengage, and they're going to go somewhere else in search of the information that they need. And for us, as PRs, as SEOs, as content marketing maestros, this means that complacency kills. We can't settle to be mediocre. We've got to fight harder than ever to win our audience's attention and hold it. We've got to be crafting high-quality campaign copy, standout headlines, and hyper-relevant hooks that mean that people can't help but click. Hack number 2 then is to embrace a bigger picture mentality. What do I mean by this? Well, let's take a look. So this lesser spotted bigger picture mentality really should be the North Star metric that guides our every action and reaction as PR professionals. It's the why behind what we do. It's the commercial context that gives our actions meaning. If we're trying to get somewhere by staring at the ground or only looking what's immediately in front of us, then we risk running around in circles, wandering aimlessly, and straying wildly off course. Sure, we need to know the steps that we're going to take to get somewhere. But if we're going to reach a destination, we need to keep our heads up. We need to keep our sights set on the overarching goal. Securing high DR links, driving traffic, building a brand's backlink profile, these are all steps, tactics. We need to situate these tactics within these wider objectives. But embracing a bigger picture mentality also means situating what we do within far broader contexts beyond what we do day to day. The world's changing all the time, and the campaign's reactive comments that we create, they need to be sensitive to what matters now. We need to place our work firmly within the social, cultural, political, economic structures of today to ensure that whatever we send out is hyper-relevant to the needs, the sensitivities, and values of current audiences. Hack number 3 is location, location, location. No, I know what you're thinking. Not that long-running Channel 4 show with Kirsty Allsop where Mike and Sandra have £85,000 to spend on their dream retirement property on the Costa del Sol. By location, 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 I mean to write top-tier content, whether it's for PR, whether it's for SEO, we need to think about the location and situation of our audiences. Why is this the case? Well, because when we're writing for digital spaces, it's vastly different for when we're writing for traditional printed media. When someone's picking up a hardback book on holiday, when they're reading the Sunday paper with a cup of coffee, in these situations, their attention is focused entirely on the words in front of them. They're doing it for leisure, pleasure. They likely don't have ulterior agendas whirring away in the background. Now, when a person interacts with a news article on a smartphone, when a journalist goes through any number of pitch emails in their inbox when they're sitting at their desk, they're distracted. They don't have the time. They just want answers fast. They don't want to be hunting around for information. So we need to be asking questions into the what, why, how, where, and who of our readers. We need to be crafting effective content for time-poor, distracted audiences. We need to ensure that readers can skim over a page and pick out the key bits of information that they need. So using tactics like bold text, frequent descriptive subheadings, summary boxes, bulleted lists, white space, infographics, whatever it takes to keep our readers clicking and scrolling. And this leads on really nicely into hack number 4, which is to think like an architect. Now, if we don't approach content creation in this way, we risk ending up with a DIY SOS rather than a grand design style masterpiece. But what does this look like within the context of content for PR? Well, actually, there's a lot of similarities between architecture and information architecture. So let's do a little live and in-person experiment. Who here lives in a house or a flat? Many people. I don't know where everybody else is living, but... And keep your hands raised if your house or flat has a front door. And keep it raised if the first kind of space after your front door is a hallway. And keep it raised if somewhere after your hallway there's a door to a lounge. Okay, yeah, most people's hands are still up. Now, raise your hand if, when you open your front door, you step straight into the bathroom. Fabulous, nobody's weird. And raise your hand if to get into your kitchen, you have to go through a trapdoor in the living room. Excellent, no hands. If we walked into a house and found the kitchen in the attic, the dining room in the basement, and the bathroom in the hallway, chances are we'd think, what the fuck? Do a 180 and leave. And the same goes for written information. If information isn't organised in a way that is logical, accessible, in a way that we expect, we get confused, we feel frustrated, and we leave. We go elsewhere in search of the information. But luckily for us, there's things we can do to avoid this. The most important one being plan. Plan like your life depends on it. Think like an architect, a P architect, if you will. I'm sorry, that was really bad. Draw up a blueprint for exactly what you are going to create before you start creating it. And make sure that you're putting a logical framework in place so that users know what they're getting, when they're getting it, and it keeps them wanting more. And that takes us on to our fifth and final hack, which is consistency is the key to success. Now, this is a big one because research shows that when content is consistent across channels, platforms, mediums, formats, times, that revenue can increase by between 10 and 20%, 20%. And if we think back to kind of the commercial context being this North Star metric, we see how important this is. If you don't believe me, let's hopefully run another little experiment. So who knows what Nike's logo is? Okay, who's brave enough to shout out? Yes. And what is Nike's slogan? Just do it, of course. Whew. Now, everybody knows these because Nike plasters them literally everywhere. Whenever it communicates with its audience, it does so in a way that is consistent with its brand identity. It does so in a way that reinforces these messages. So if our efforts to kind of secure this high-profile coverage, to build visibility for a brand, and to have the greatest impact, then we need to make sure that our campaigns, any content we produce for our brands, for our clients, is consistent from floor to ceiling. Any less, and we risk muddying the waters, diluting messages, and compromising the overall commercial success. So to achieve this, we need to become extensions of our clients' teams. We need to think as they think, feel as they feel, and act as they act. We need to internalize brand identity and tone of voice guidelines. And we need to constantly self-assess whatever we create against what we've identified as being exemplary. So, to sum up, aside from remembering not to drink bleach, what do we need to remember? Number one, humans have an intrinsic bias towards negativity. So any fuck-ups are going to have a disproportionately large impact on brand perception and performance. And when these fuck-ups happen on a larger stage, the repercussions are going to be even bigger. Number two is our work as PRs and SEOs does not exist in a vacuum. It is deeply connected to a much bigger picture, a much wider narrative, both of which we're responsible for protecting. Number three, people are fickle. Audience loyalty can take years to build, but moments to destroy. If we're losing trust because of amateur oversight, simple errors, then we're essentially gifting our customers to competitors on a silver platter. And finally, follow your North Star metric. Don't lose sight of the bigger picture. Remember your why. So I'm going to leave you with this. The higher you climb, the better your view. But ultimately, the further you and your clients are going to have to fall. Thank you very much.